All right, next up is going to be how to make a little beanbag that you can use for all kinds of games, for throwing and catching, passing from hand to hand, popping on your head and balancing, balancing on your shoulder, on your foot. Endless possibilities. Anyway, I'll go and grab, I've got my fabric here. So we're going to use, I'm going to use the scraps from our mermaid tails so they don't go to waste, because you don't need very much. They're only going to be small. So any kind of scraps of fabric, you can use any kind of fabric you like. So you could use, an old tea towel, or as long as the weave isn't too loose. It doesn't have to be stretchy. So you need a little bit of fabric, a needle and a thread, scissors, and again, some dried beans or rice. I'm just going to go and grab my needle and thread. Be right back. So we're going to make round beanbags. So you need something circular to trace. I'm just using this. It's kind of a large mug, and I'll use that. Basically, you want it to be a little bit bigger than your hand. So maybe like a saucer or a small bowl. Any size will be fun. So you just need something to trace. So pop your fabric face down, so the coloured side facing downwards, and we're going to draw on the back side of the fabric. So trace 2 circles and always go right to the edges so we don't waste any fabric, as close as you can, but leave a bit of a gap around there. We've gone to the edge, trace around the circle, and one more. And then you need to cut your circles out, not right on the drawn line again, the same as we did with the paper. We want to go 1 centimetre out so that we're giving ourselves room, a little seam allowance to sew. So we're going to cut our circles out, giving ourselves 1 centimetre seam allowance. So you cut just with fabric scissors if you've got some, around like that. Okay, now turn one circle face up, coloured side up, and we're going to pop this one face down. And I'm going to use a few little pins to hold it in place. So just a few pins around the edge. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're going to just stitch around here, but we have to remember to leave a gap. So to remind myself, I'm just going to draw a gap on. So I'm going to put a line here. So we need a gap so that we can turn it inside out, and then we can fill it up. So you need to thread your needle. Just thread a needle. Then I bring both ends of the thread together. This is quite long, this thread, which might make it a little bit harder to work with, but then I don't have to re-thread the needle part way through. So I've got both ends together, and then you just need to pop that in a knot. So I do this, I go round twice around my finger, and then I roll with my fingers, and then I pull, and it makes a knot. You're not going to see this knot anyway. Any way you tie the knot is fine. So start at one of these points that you marked, and you're just going to do a simple running stitch, so in and out, which my girls call dolphin stitch, because it's like the dolphin diving in and out of the whales. Try to keep your stitches fairly, not too big, because we don't want too many gaps where the grains, whatever grains you choose to fill it with, could fall out. So fairly small. Then pull it, and then up from the bottom and pull it. So my faster way, I just do it all in one go, down, back up, and I do a few along the needle, down, back up, and pull it through. As you go round, because this does tend to gather the fabric, you do need, I've got a little knot there, we go. You do need to just sort of keep stretching it back out again if it starts to gather up. So you're going to go all the way around till you get to the other little mark that we did. When you get to the other little mark, just stop for a minute and make sure it is all spread out and flat. And now what we're going to do, hopefully I've got enough thread to get around again, is to actually turn around and sew back on the same line just to make it a little bit stronger. If you can see, it's hard to see because I've used a light coloured thread, but I'm going to try and stitch in the opposite spots. So put my thread in the middle of one of my stitches and come back up in the middle of one of my previous stitches. So it's still just dolphin stitch or running stitch, but I'm just going in through the gaps. So I go up in the middle of my stitch, I go down in the gap between my first two stitches, between my old two stitches, and then up in the middle of a stitch. I'll take that out as I go. In through the middle of a stitch. It's just to kind of make sure that we've got enough little stitches holding it together so we don't have any gaps big enough for your grains or your legumes to slip through. So once you've come all the way back around to that little mark that we drew, you just knot it off. So as if you're making a stitch, poke the needle through, wrap around the needle tip twice or 3 times, pull it through, pull your needle through, and that makes a knot. And then you just snip that thread off, and we're ready to turn our beanbag inside out. So push the fabric through the hole till it's all in the right way. Oh, Perry the cat's back up on the counter. Nope. Okay. So you pop it through and just push it all open up like that. Okay, and now we need to pop our rice or our beans or legumes in through this little hole. So now frustratingly my camera stopped recording partway through this, but basically what I did was made a little cone out of paper and just pop a staple in there, and then I stuck the cone into the opening of the beanbag, and I used split peas, but I poured split peas in through the top of the funnel and filled up the bag. Okay, so once you've done that, turn these flaps back in on themselves so they poke back inside the beanbag. I'm just going to pop a few little pins to hold that in place. So one pin, another pin, just to hold that closed for me. And then you'll need to, then you get your needle and thread, go in through that little opening so that the knot on your thread gets tucked inside. And basically, we're just going to stitch binding that edge shut. So the stitch sort of wraps over like that. So we're going, it wraps around the seam, the join. And closes that shut. So small stitches are good so that none of the peas can slip out in between your stitches. And you just go all the way till you've entirely closed up that opening, and you'll be able to see where your other stitching finished. And when you get to that spot, which I have just reached, you go through, wrap around the end, the tip of the needle 1, 2, 3 to make a knot, pull it tight. Then you tuck your needle in close to your knot and just bring it up anywhere you like in the beanbag. And then you pull that tight, chop off that tail, and that tail will disappear into the beanbag. All done. After a busy morning of crafting, we now have 2 shakers and 1 beanbag. There are many ways that you could make your beanbag a bit more exciting if you like. So my girls have these ones, Sylvie made this one, and they've actually stitched some ribbons into them, and they love to throw them so they look like a comet flying through the sky. There's a star-shaped one like that. But this just shows you basically how to make a simple beanbag. If you wanted to pop ribbons in, you can pop them in that little opening before you stitch it up right at the very end. Well everyone, I hope you've enjoyed doing some crafts, or you will enjoy doing some of these crafts. And I look forward to seeing everyone soon. Okay, bye.